Oh, okay.
I work in Heritage so too.
At the high school.
I spent a little bit of time.
Right now, I
two
can
springs
see if
ago
you stand
as
over
I kind
there.
of filling down.
Wait for my notes.
Okay.
Oh, you want to be, I can move a little bit. But right now I can see you
So
face
it's
on
just
your
a couple
halfway.
months that it's kind of-
So
Yeah,
So I was
When
talking.
you
to
look
some
at that, so if
friends
I do
of mine
like
who
that,
work for-
it's doing pretty well. Mhm, that's pretty good.
You know, we do knocks.
Right.
There are 10 people already.
And that's their goal.
Did you want me to just read?
Just- Anyway, one of their kids is doing fantastic, loves school, and the other kid's frustrated.
Okay, sounds good.
And he's just frustrated because he can't figure out what to do in school.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, when his parents help him, or the tutor or something, he gets that because it's a person instead of
Oh, yeah.
just.
So is it started?
So I don't know.
Especially those young grades for sure.
We are on.
It's really
Awesome.
And my neighbor, she just had a baby, she's a
She's just checking.
third grade teacher up at the UPass Elementary.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, she literally had the baby and he was walking around 2 days later.
Well, welcome, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you for the folks that are online, and there's a few folks in person too. So I'll do my best to talk to both the camera and. But my name's Jesse Holland, principal of high school. Been here for 18 years now. In the capacity of social studies teacher, wrestling cross-country coach, dean of students, assistant principal, and now principal of high school. Been principal of the high school for the last 2 years. And it's been an honor to serve this community in all those capacities. I have 3 kids in the district. Jake, who's a 9th grader here at the high school. Alice, who's a 6th grader at the middle school, and Lucy's a 3rd grader at the elementary school. So I have a good perspective of the district and the schools from a parent and as a school leader. So welcome. Tonight is the first time we've done a forum like this, and really looking forward to it, and hopefully some great dialogue. Just to celebrate a few things before we start. There's been a lot of great things going on at the high school that you may or may not know about. I'm super excited. We just started peer observations at the high school, which means teachers are observing other teachers to provide feedback to one another and see each other's practice to get better. So that's one thing that we just started recently. School registration for next year is starting. So we have some new courses coming out, and English 3 and English 4 is no more. And we've created some new classes that are more contemporary and hopefully appeal to our students. So that's one change we're making with school registration, some new classes that are being offered. Also, I'd like to celebrate our attendance rate. It's really high compared to the rest of the high schools around here. We're at 94% right now. And that's something definitely to celebrate, especially during a time of COVID. Many of you have probably seen Careers in Construction, the house we're building on the side of the high school here. We have a number of students that are involved in that process and learning construction trades while getting a work credential when they're finished with that program. So that's coming along nicely with Mr. Borkowski. Standardized test scores, we're always above the state average and want to celebrate that. And the graduation rate is above the state average. So those are all great things that are happening here at Manitou. Athletics and activities, we have a ton of things going on right now. Both the girls and boys are right in the midst of basketball playoffs. Robotics is going to a national competition in California. Our One Act just won an award here in El Paso County for the best one act play. Wrestling had our first girls state championship placer, 4th this weekend. And also Stuco last week raised $1,500 for the Boulder fire victims. So a lot of things to celebrate. I just want you to know that my vision here is I want to make this a great place for kids and teachers to go to school every day, where they're welcome and they love coming here every day. And that's my vision. We do a pretty good job at that. And I'm proud to be the principal of this building because this is a great school and very unique to other schools within the state of Colorado. And really proud to send my kids here and be a leader here at the high school. And with that being said, the other priority is safety. That's my first priority, is to make sure folks are safe here at Two Springs High School. So kind of the way the night's going to go tonight is I'm going to turn it over to Officer Strider, who's our school resource officer, and Janie Anderson, our director of security, where they're going to do a brief introduction or a brief on safety and security.
All
All right.
Do we need to come up there? Can we just do this?
Hi. Oh, yeah.
gotcha, yeah.
Sorry, man.
And the speakers are there.
Don't step on the speaker.
Camera's right
Oh, okay. Am I on it now?
Yeah,
you were on it.
Okay.
there. Take 3. Go for it.
I'm Officer Strider. I'm the school resource officer here. Jamie is the director of safety and security. We share an office. We work very closely together. And we address issues pretty much ranging from someone lost their earbuds to felony cases of all sorts. So we run the gamut. Jamie, 30 years of law enforcement experience. This is my 3rd career, so I'm just now starting out in law enforcement, but it's been amazing so far and I'm very happy to be here.
And Mandy's been a great asset to us as far as relationships with the kids and investigations. She's just done a great job this year, and it's been kind of busy, to be quite honest. We start with like TikTok challenges, damaging to the bathrooms. I can't remember that so long ago, it seems like. And it's just, it depends on what's going on. I consider it like a day on patrol. I come in, I say, okay, I have a couple meetings, and then you just never know what's going to come up. So the students here are very comfortable with both of us and the staff. And we may get tips via Safe to Tell, but it's what's even more comforting is that they feel safe to come to trusted adults if they see something on Instagram or something and they want it addressed and it's a safety concern. We take each and every one of those seriously. And we work together as a team, along with admin, our school counselors. We're part of the mental health team too, so what, depending on the issue. And so I think we make a great team. I love the kids here at Manitou, even the ones that get sent down to our office or the principal's office or whatever, we all leave with a good relationship afterwards. It's not like they're like, oh gosh, here comes Janie and Officer Strider, let's run away from them. So overall, as far as safety for the district, Dr. Domingue and Kat and Matt from IT have been very supportive of things that we've looked at. So we're looking at getting better cameras, more cameras. We're looking at getting better PA systems. So we're doing drills, or if there's an emergency or something that comes up, any kind of technological advances that we can make. Mandy has gone through digital forensic training, because a lot of the stuff we deal with is social media stuff, right? Whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. And I don't know how to do that stuff. And we're both learning together.
I barely know how to do that.
Yes. And there will be some classes. I think Officer Strider is going to work with PHC. She's going to be scheduled for
March
March.
6th to do an online safety presentation for parents, just to kind of learn what to look for on their kids' phones and be aware of some apps that kids might be using to hide certain communications or pictures, so stuff like that.
And then there's also another class we're going to follow up with the Colorado Springs ICAC unit, El Paso County ICAC unit. It's a joint unit, Internet Crimes Against Children, where they actually teach you. It's called Vigilant Parenting. It'll teach you how to go step by step on your children's apps that they have and how to put safety features on there to keep them from not finding the wrong things out there. Just gonna talk about something else and I just forgot. So go ahead and I'll think about what I was gonna say.
I know what you were gonna say, but do you guys have any questions?
So anyone online that's listening, if you want to use the Q&A to just type in a question, that would be great.
Obviously, the kids could make an appointment to visit with you if they have an issue or.
Oh, yeah,
whatnot.
they don't need
Your
an
office is-
appointment. They
Yeah.
just can walk in.
They just can walk in if we don't have time to, depending on what the issue is. If it's an emergency, we'll take care of it right then and there and then sit down. If it's something they want to do, like we do school interviews for school projects or what have you, they can communicate by phone, email, walk in, open door policy.
Oh, I did want to say that I have, I'm in contact with a lot of the other school resource officers from different districts and schools, and I'm very glad to be here. They're having a lot of issues on a larger scale than we're having, so this is a great school district, and the kids are, for the most part, very good and supportive. Good kids, so.
If you haven't noticed, we do have, Mandy is our SRO. We also have Mercurial Security, so we have armed security at each school. Because Mandy is housed out of here and so am I, Jediah, middle school, but he also comes up to the high school, so it's kind of like a boy thing. Other issues that we can, talk. Traffic, pickup, traffic flow, drop off, pickup at UPass Elementary, Manitou Elementary, high school, middle school, you name it. We know we're not in the best, it's not like we have these huge parking lots that we can just put in our own curbs and do our own thing. At the elementary school at Manitou is right out of public way. So we met with streets and we're working with parking enforcement to try to just get better crossing signs, and our facilities guys, they come out, put work with their vendors. So that's been pretty much the recent issue right now, because the traffic complaints, and we're aware, we're trying, and we're open for feedback. We've even walked parking lots with some parents, and then, because sometimes you all have a better idea than we do, to be quite honest.
Elementary school, the new drop-off system's going great, and it seems so much better than 5 years ago. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Even with the snow.
Yeah.
So we have an online question.
I do have an online question. Janie, you mentioned a resource in connection with CSPD. Could you repeat that and speak to that a little bit more?
Sure, it's going to be a class. It's not scheduled yet, but it's the Colorado Springs Police Department and El Paso County Sheriff's Office. It's an Internet Crimes Against Children unit. So they've done a ton of presentations to officers and things on students, but what they found they were lacking is parents did not have that information. So if we said, make sure you check your kids' phones, I'd say, look at my kid's phone and say it's a red phone. That's nice. But I don't know how to navigate through the different applications they have. And they have iPads. It's a hands-on class that can go through each of the Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, and I think there's one more that they're working. It's about a 2-hour class, but
TikTok, I think.
and
Oh,
TikTok,
yeah.
and we both, Officer Strider and all, we went through that training with some SROs, and I meet with the school security directors regionally. Same thing like Mandy, I'm kind of thankful that we're here in Manitou. So thank you. You've done good with your kids. Appreciate that. But that's what that class is going to be out. We'll send out information about that when we get that scheduled. But the first kickoff for that will be Mandy's presentation with PHC.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And a testament to how great the kids are here. No one's stolen my parking sign yet. That is my biggest claim to fame.
Yeah. Other issues we deal with is vaping sometimes, or complaints of vaping. There's other stuff you can get out there, vaping sensorizers and stuff. So if they're vaping in the bathroom, it'll go right to Cameron's phone or my phone, and we got to run down there and try to see who's vaping. But really, we want to try the educational piece and try to discourage the vaping activity. So we're trying to work with other teachers. Eventually, Mandy, hopefully we'll get back down to middle school. They used to have a program that works on internet safety and other stuff, working with the health teachers to kind of talk to the students as well. Any other questions?
Thanks, Janie and Mandy.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've allotted about 30 minutes for Q&A. I know I think there's some folks online. Is there 10 people? on there?
We have 12, 13.
Okay. So the next 30 minutes is Q and A for anything that's on your mind that I'd be happy to answer.
Perhaps we could start with 2 questions that were submitted in advance.
Absolutely.
I'll read them and then you can jump in. So the first question is, what is the expectation for teachers to update assignments or enter grades in Canvas? As a parent, I'm having a hard time supporting and understanding my child's grades and assignments.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a great question. And I spoke with Sarah,
It's not mine, but I've had that exact question.
and I've spoke with Sarah quite a bit about this. And this is a challenge, and I can empathize with parents because from the Canvas end, it sometimes is difficult to navigate. And one of the things that is really difficult to navigate is the conversation that I've had with my student that says, hey, this looks like it hasn't been turned in. Have you turned it in? And the response always is, yeah, Dad, I've turned that in. And as a parent from looking on that Canvas side, it's difficult to see. Now, what I can tell you is teachers update their grades weekly. Right. And the other piece of that is we have Canvas, which they submit their grades to, and then we have PowerSchool, where the grades also show up in our student data management system. And those 2 programs talk to each other once a day. So that sometimes makes it difficult also. If you're checking PowerSchool, sometimes the grade looks different than the grade in Canvas. So my suggestion is always reach out to the teacher if it's unclear after talking to your student, whether they've submitted the assignment. You'll email them and I'm sure they'll email you back to explain what's going on, whether that assignment has been submitted or has not been submitted. Also, I'm there for support. If you're really struggling with Canvas, we have people talk to me and we have people that can help you navigate it. I know, Sarah, you're meeting with Leslie about navigating Canvas.
The reason we're meeting is because there's a teacher version and a kid version.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've been trained on, teacher or kid, but we have to use the parent version,
Sure.
which we don't get much training on.
Sure.
So hopefully that
that's-
can be a piece of like the New Year's information.
Absolutely. That's great feedback for us to really help folks navigate the parent side of it also.
And there is some great videos, and I think Leslie shared them with you today, on the parent side, on the website too, that really goes in detail on how to see it. But it's a lot of work, for sure.
Hasn't happened today, sorry.
The other thing I can tell you is there are due dates for assignments. So say a student turns in a late assignment, the teacher might have already graded that packet of work from that class. So it might take a few days to grade a late assignment. So a lot of times, kids might submit an assignment in Canvas late, and then it might stay there for a while as a non-graded assignment. So, teachers have between 80 and 100 kids. So sometimes it takes some time to grade those assignments.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, the next question that was submitted in advance was, I saw in the Pikes Peak Bulletin crime section today that there were 2 more reports of statutory rape in the 400 block of El Monte Place. Can you tell us if there have been further reports of sexual assault on children at the Manitou Springs School District after Hilton Barton were arrested?
Here at the school district, we pride ourselves on transparency. If there was a sexual assault on a child within this district, the district would let parents in the community know about it. With the arrest of Tim Hill and Matt Barton, as soon as that arrest was announced, Dr. Domain sent out emails to the community, letting them know of those arrests of former teachers. So absolutely, we would let people know if that was connected to the school in any way.
I know, what was the question?
Assaults on
400.
400 block of El Monte Place in the Pikes Peak Bulletin.
There's no other arrests made of teachers beyond Barton Hill.
Did it
Thank you for the clarification.
Just to clarify that, I'm not sure if you heard online, Officer Mandy said there's no other arrests of teachers with assaults on kids.
Right, I think our next online question builds on that one. Are we able to address the recent news reports of previous teachers being convicted of sexual assault? And how, as a school and a community, we will work towards preventing these situations in the future?
Absolutely. The question is, how are we addressing that? And I can tell you right now, our staff has gone through 2 sessions of mandatory reporter training. One at the beginning of the year that's online with CDE. And just recently, we had another reporter training, a mandatory reporter training, in which our school social worker and school counselor walked our teachers through scenarios. Because a lot of these situations can be gray, where it's secondhand knowledge or rumor or gossip, and just really clarifying with teachers and staff what the process is to mandatory report. And that process is staff staff are required to directly report to either the police or Department of Human Services, depending on what the situation is. So that's one thing we're doing. We're doing a lot of communication around that to parents and staff. Dr. Domain, would you like to add to that?
One of the things I just want to also add is the work with students, ensuring that students understand what their rights are under Title IX, and also opportunities through Safe to Tell. So I think some of our best hopes too is that conversations around what students need when there's a situation that comes up, that families feel like they can also reach out if there's something that pops up. I've had multiple parents call for different reasons saying, I don't know what to do with this. And oftentimes I will connect them with Officer Strider, or will kind of direct them into a different place. But those are important. And also knowing the trusted adults in the school and trusted adults at home. And then also our administration has also gone through training, and recently we had Safe Passage and also DHS and also Mandy, Officer Strider and JD there, just really to continue to train our leadership team around some scenarios. So if a situation pops up, how would we handle that? What would be some options? And making sure that it really is a team approach to looking at situations, but ultimately that children feel safe, that staff feel safe to report, that families feel safe to report, and that it doesn't happen again. And then I do think Cameron is doing some great work around safe sport. So maybe Cameron, you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. Safe Sport is something that was created after the Olympics 2017 ordeal. And so basically Safe Sport's pretty simple. It's tools, it's guidelines for adults that are coaching or, in positions of leadership over kids. And it's guidelines for one-on-one interactions. It gives tools for coaches. And so we're starting that process of training our coaches on the Safe Sport guidelines. So it's a pretty cool thing.
The one thing I would also add is after these reports came out about former teachers, what we did at the high school is we had class meetings. with every class and communicated the Title IX process to students, talked about Safe to Tell, talked about trusted adults. So just being really clear with students, if they hear something or they feel uncomfortable with something, it is their right and obligation and to report and make them feel comfortable in doing that.
Last thing I'll add, sorry, just.
And I can tell you, Safe to Tell is an incredible tool for us at the high school, where we get many tips with students that don't feel comfortable in reporting stuff to people like me. And that way it's anonymous and we engage and look at every Safe to Tell tip and then investigate it thoroughly. It's run by this Colorado State Patrol. And I could tell you probably 50 stories about things that we've addressed before they've gotten worse.
Two additional important aspects for us is just around our hiring practices. Hiring is really an understanding of who we're bringing into our buildings. And so some of the additional work in terms of reference checks, but we have different layers. And for example, we include students on those interviews. We make sure that students get a sense about the staff member we may be bringing into our classrooms, but also that any potential staff member will have another fourth reference check from the school district that they were coming from and or institution where they were working with children, so that we can ensure that that's happening. We've been doing reference checks. Don't get me wrong, we do reference checks and background checks, but we are just adding additional layers there so that there's an assurance. And then the other thing you can be looking forward to for as parents, students, and staff is that we are working with some external folks to facilitate focus groups. And so those focus groups are going to be starting soon. So we hope that parents will participate, students and staff, for each of the schools. There will be separate focus groups, really to say, to answer some questions. We won't be a part of those. And then there'll be a summary report that will come out in May and June. And we're looking forward to those dialogues. So please be aware of those communications come out soon. Thanks. Joseph.
Thank you.
There are two clarifying questions building on that one. The first is Officer Strider, did you use the word convictions? And can you speak to that language, please, to clarify? Great timing that
She
you
has a
just took
mouthful.
a bite. I did that strategically.
No, I said no other arrests have been made aside from Barton and Hill. And just to be clear, those individuals have not had their day in court yet. They're still innocent till they're proven guilty. They have not been convicted either. So they have just been arrested and charged with those charges by the DA's office. So I don't know if that was an online question, if they have more, if they need anything.
I think that's
else.
perfect. If they'd like to add something online, they can.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Same vein, when will the results of the investigation be shared with parents and the community?
So I know the preliminary hearings are this month. 24th and the 15th, I believe.
So we don't have a timeline on that. The investigation from a law enforcement standpoint is, I would say, near complete. The next step would be the process with the court system. So that looks like, are they going to take plea deals? Are they going to go to trial? What is that going to look like? I have no idea. If they decide to go to trial, the trial could be a year from now. So that process is just kind of something that's out of my hands at this point, as well as everyone else in the district is kind of now up to the other side of the process.
Thank you.
I'll add, as we get new information that we can share with the community, we will. And so part of that focus group work will be really around what is our current understanding of reporting systems, how can we do that better? And so really, it's not looking at the past, it's looking to the current and then future best hopes. But as we can share, we will. And then also anything that we can kind of provide in a summary report, we'll provide when the time is right. We don't want to interfere with anything law enforcement is working through. Good questions.
I know we also have in-person people. So if there are any in-person questions, I think we could alternate to that and then we can jump back to online.
I guess I have one for Dr. Domingo. Since we know that most people who do sexual assault are not convicted ever, so background checks are fairly limited. What other steps are we taking as a district to make sure we have a culture that doesn't allow this going into the future? I know it's hard. I do HR. I know it's hard. I know it's real judgment, just questions.
I think to what Cameron just talked about, really in terms of us having good process and training and dialogue with our staff to say, if the circumstance is heading in this direction, or how do we prevent that? And recognize that we could stay out of these gray zones and these boundaries that sometimes can become blurred, and really making sure that we're not. I can tell you from a district perspective, at the Board of Education meeting Monday night, our board is going to be reviewing a first reading of a staff code of conduct. And that's not just some staff, that's for all staff. And that code of conduct is going to be very specific in terms of relationships, the boundaries. And then we talk about it often. It's not just having the policy, it's having spaces where people can talk about this. So, let's say a student emails a teacher, and, my practice is I CC parents on those emails. And how do we make sure that those are places where we can have dialogue? So that's one, it's just training and development, open conversations. The hiring process is so important. And then also ensuring that we have an environment where people feel like they can report, and they can report it anonymously, they can report it face to face, but that we do it timely and that we don't let time lapse too long or at all. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think, I remember asking a similar question to an overnight camp. And so, having policies around how teachers are allowed to communicate. Are they allowed to, can they email? How do we know if they're emailing through Instagram or TikTok or sending messages, just thinking about further policies on what to do.
That we have not prior to this experience, and we will have very specific expectations. And I think that our staff want that as well. It really, they don't want to be put in situations as well. And I think it's important that, Cameron and athletics, they've already started to look at overnight processes. Maybe Cameron, you can speak.
Yeah, I can speak to a little bit of what you said, like in the sports world anyway, because we do have lots of overnight trips and things like that. So, that I think this process actually started probably 4 years ago when I first took the job, trying to figure out how to reel in the communication that happens just system wide. Each team kind of had their own way of doing things. If it was some coaches, were super old school and they didn't use any fancy apps or anything to do anything through, and they used strictly email or things like that. And then other coaches were super techie and, they're all through Facebook or whatever, right? So we started using SportsU as a communication tool. I think this is year maybe 2 on that, maybe 3.
Year 3.
Maybe 3. But we're pretty much 100% there, sports and clubs. And really that is now our main communication tool. And what's great about it is everything's logged. Any conversation with any kid in chat, any post, it's all logged. I get notifications on messages and all that. So really streamlining our communication tool. We have been very clear with coaches that personal texting and things like that needs to go. And so we're getting there. We're pretty close. I think most coaches have stopped with the texting and things like that, and went strictly with the SportsU or email. Those are really our 2 sources of communication. And then the Safe Sport really addresses a lot of those things. It addresses communication, overnight, travel, You know, we've done some things where, you know, we put some guidelines in on travel and how many, you know, it gets hard, you know, you go somewhere and how many coaches can, you know, having more than one coach, you know, things like that. So we've put some of those things in where we're hiring other people just for travel now that we didn't have before, getting volunteers to travel. So things like that. And Safe Sport really addresses a lot of those things. So as we're training our coaches, next year we'll have every coach, every activity person that's supervising an activity will be trained in Safe Sport as well. So, and I think we'll probably be the only district around that actually has that. So I think we're taking some pretty active steps to keep our coaches safe, right? Because, you know, they need tools and guidelines because, you know, coaches and our teachers, I mean, they have big hearts. And, you know, a teacher wants to help a kid. They want to, you know, a kid standing out there and they need a ride home, you know, it's cold, you know, like they have big hearts and things like that. But so we have to have safety things in place where, you know, hey, we have one-on-one guidelines, you know, so is it interruptible? Is it observable? You know, those are the one-on-one guidelines through Safe Sport. Is this interaction that I'm having with this kid interruptible and observable right now, right? And then training our kids on that too, so that they don't put the adults in the building in situations where they're out of compliance with a one-on-one interaction and things like that. So we have some good things in place.
Last thing I'll just add is calls from parents. And if you want to stay anonymous, that is fine. Just if you see ways that we can do better or we can think about something differently, just not to equate it to the parking, but from different lens, you see it differently or communication, please reach out. We'd way rather be proactive than reactive. And I just kudos to all of the systems that have been put in place over time. And I really like to say that these things were in the past, but I believe, our team believes this is preventable. And that's the frame that we're going to come from. And we're going to need partnerships with parents and students and staff for sure.
And community partnerships.
And partnerships, yeah.
Sarah.
Is this topic been covered? Because I have a separate question.
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up on the question earlier about the Canvas / Power School. When you say that it's going to be updated once a week, is there a day we can expect, like, for instance, in my school, the week ends on Tuesday and it begins on Wednesday?
Right.
So
what I mean about weekly updates is teachers should be putting in grades weekly.
but it's up to them which day is weekly.
Right.
Okay.
You know, so some teachers may have a test on Tuesday and they put the grade in on Friday, or it depends, but you know, depends on the class, but grades should be updated on a weekly basis.
I would like to say, as a parent, it would be really helpful if that could be something you consider in the future. Like
A uniform
Yeah.
update.
the updates will happen X day so that you don't have to worry about, well, is this the day that this grade is going to be updated?
I think that would be really difficult to go do school-wide, Sarah, because
Okay.
different courses look different ways.
That's
But,
okay. I'm just.
you know, I think
on my side.
Yeah, but I can explore, you know, I think that something that would be good is the teachers to really clarify in their syllabus and parent-teacher conferences, how they update grades.
That would work too.
Would be a great way to approach that, which we can certainly do a better job.
I like the sound of that.
All right. This is kind of reversing back and kind of moving forward simultaneously. Has there been a revised social media policy for staff since previously teachers were communicating with students via Facebook?
That is part of the Board of Education Code of Conduct that the board's working on right now. Correct, Dr.
It is, and it's actually, if anyone wants to see it, the current draft, the first reading is Monday night. So the board looked at it a few weeks ago, but the first reading is posted in board docs under policy development. And I really encourage folks to read that. And if there's some questions prior to adoption, it's very important. So you can log in, not even log in, just go to our website, go to Board of Education, Board Docs, and then go to the meeting agenda and you can see that draft policy there. It's extremely comprehensive, I believe, but also, as we said, policy also requires some training as well. So good question.
Thank you. All right, changing gears. What are the policies about student cell phones?
That's a great policy.
Get rid of the cell phones. Don't allow them in the schools. Leave them at the door.
So the cell phone policy, which I just posted recently in the school newsletter. And this was a great staff effort to develop a policy a few years back where teachers got together and had a lot of dialogue about what made sense for our school and our kids and our community with cell phones. And the policy is during class, they need to be put away and a student cannot use a cell phone during class. Is this an area of growth for us? Absolutely. Because some teachers are more flexible with that than others. But that's the basis of the policy, is when that a student is in class, their cell phone needs to be put away. Sometimes a teacher can give permission to students to use their cell phone for some type of academic situation where they're looking up things on their phones, or there may be an app on their phones that they're using in class, or their laptop is dead. With explicit teacher permission, cell phones can be used during class. That's the policy.
They, 4 years ago at West Middle School, the principal just said no more. And it wasn't the kids that raised Cain, but it was the parents saying, no, my son or my daughter needs a phone, because what if they need to call me, or what if they need this? Well, they shouldn't need to call anybody if they're in class learning something, or whatever many minutes they're in that class.
Right.
So they put a deal on
Yeah.
that. And it was rough, I guess, because I sat on the PTA and she was always bringing that up.
Sure, I know
How
if
rough it
there's
was. It was
one
just the
thing
parents.
that people care about is their phone. Right?
Yeah, just,
And it's a touchy subject, and folks are all over the board on it. If it was up to me, as far as, if we could get rid of these forever, I'd be happy. I think they make life a lot more complex than it should be. But unfortunately, I think it's a thing that we have to respect where people are at with cell phones. And in today's society, people want to be connected all the time. I know if I did not have my cell phone for the day, I would feel very disconnected from coworkers, my family, my friends, and I'm sure our kids would feel that way also. So I think our policy is good. When a teacher is in class and kids are learning, there's no place for this, so it should be put away. But in between classes, lunch, before and after school, I think it's okay for kids to use their cell phone. And that was kind of the dialogue with teachers. I guess it was 3 years ago at this point. But we definitely need to revisit it because during COVID, we were a little more lax as far as
almost had to be.
appealing to what kids needed and really being in touch with their social emotional state. And sometimes this was part of their social emotional state where maybe they needed to listen to music or connect with their family because of everything that's gone on. So.
Yeah, I told Nicole he's gonna have to wait till he's 18. I'm not giving in.
So he doesn't have one.
No
Sorry.
way. I'm not gonna kill him with that.
Right. Other questions online?
This is going back to a comment that was made about the focus groups. Will those focus group responses be anonymous, since many people are concerned about retaliation with voicing their honest opinions?
Yeah, those are gonna be anonymous. Well, the folks, when they want to sign up, it won't be anonymous in the sense that we'll need to put them in a focus group, but all of their comments, it won't be associated with a student or a parent or a circumstance. And essentially, the high-level reporting and feedback will be, here's some trends, themes, outcomes, and recommendations. So it would never say Eric McMartin said this, but because they're facilitated by people, it can't be completely confidential in the sense that it's not an anonymous survey. So the idea is that that's why there'll be a third-party group that will be conducting those focus groups. And that will be laid out in when the details come out for each of the schools and each of the groups.
Great, next question. Will there be cameras in the hallways and will people be watching them? Will teachers be held to not having children alone in their classrooms?
So currently there are cameras in the hallways and in the building. Jamie, how many cameras are there? I think there's 14,
31 in this building.
31. Well, the outside ones. So there's
16 that are in
Yeah,
this
there's
building.
16 inside and the rest are outside. So we have a pretty good view. There are a few blind spots in the building, but every hallway is covered with cameras. Our camera system has a great memory, so we can go back over a month to look at events that have been reported. I know over the years, being an assistant principal, I'm a master at the camera and can really find things. If things are reported that happened in the hallways, we can usually find it on camera. They're a very valuable tool that we use every single day within this building for many different things. As far as teachers being in class with students, again, that's what Cameron used the phrase of interruptible and observable. So there may be a few interactions during the day where a teacher is sitting at his desk working or a student comes in, but that interaction should be interruptible and observable.
Thank you. All right. On the advertisement for this forum, grading policies were mentioned. Can you please speak to that?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing to say about grading policy is different classes have different expectations. We have advanced placement classes, we have concurrent enrollment classes, we have a plethora of art classes, band classes, regular graduation requirement classes. So grading looks different in all those classes. But what we really need to ensure is that within the sections of those classes, grading is consistent from teacher to teacher and section to section. And what we're doing on this is an area of growth for us as a high school. What we're doing right now is we have a cohort of teachers that is in a workshop put on by CDE to look at grading practices and grading policy. Ms. Conrad, our assistant principal, is running that with a number of teachers. And the plan is after they go through this workshop, we're going to communicate what they've learned back to the building leadership team. And then building leadership team is going to talk to their departments and really start to drill down and how we can improve our grading practices depending on the level of the course. So we're consistent as a school and making sure that that's really communicated to students and to parents. So, other questions? Oh, great.
Indeed, there are. All right. The next question is, there have been quite a few teachers absent from the school at various times this school year, have all since returned. Can you speak to that?
Unfortunately, I can't speak to absences of faculty or staff because that's a personnel issue. So if you do have questions about that, a great place to reach out would be our HR person, Marcia Weimer. And we can put Marcia's email in the chat. Can we do that?
I will respond with it.
Okay, perfect.
I can jump in while you guys are looking at a question if you want real quick. Officer Strider and I forgot to mention, part of what we're looking at as a district is instead of just, if kids do something criminal, instead of just Officer Strider writing them a ticket, make them go to court, making the parent take time off, go to court or whatever, pay fines and all that. We've been working on restorative justice practices. So in the past, we've used, and we still use, Pikes Peak, like neighborhood justice. Okay, that's run out of the 4th Judicial District, where that's a free service. And both parties, whether it's a student conflict or what have you, they can go down to that location, work things out and have some restorative justice there. We also use Robin Spalding, who's been around our community for many years, doing mediation and things like that. So the high schools use that, and I think somebody else was looking at using that as well. On top of that, Ms. Conrad, myself, Officer Strider, some students, PHC, we all went over to Palmer High School to look at their student restorative justice practice. And we brought our students and we brought our staff to kind of learn how they do their thing. And then we're gonna maybe develop our own, not maybe, but we're gonna develop our own, but ours may not look exactly like the 11th because their school is, they're different schools, right? So that's something to look forward to. Hopefully we'll get that picked up by next year, but it's just gonna take some work. We asked the students that participated in it because they got to interview the students that were on it, and it's student run. And if there's a teacher-student conflict, they obviously have to have another adult in the room kind of help and monitor and facilitate, but it was really promising. And our students said that they think people would be really receptive to that too, so. Oh, sorry, one more thing. And also, instead of sending people to court, Officer Strider sometimes will refer them to, it used to be called teen court, which is now Forge Evolution, which is a really cool thing too, because they go to court. It's not a real, it's not on their criminal record or anything. And they get to be evaluated by their peers on what the punishment should be. They get to serve on a jury of their peers for somebody else, and they end up doing like community service and just trying to keep the kids out of the court systems. Sorry, Jesse.
And probably just to add to that, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with restorative justice or restorative practice. What that means is when there's a situation that happens where a lot of times there's a consequence, what we do is work with, what's a better name than, or better term than offender, but the person that committed the act. We work with that person to, what are you going to do to fix this? You know, who has this impacted besides yourself getting in trouble? And how can I help you and support you in fixing this situation so it doesn't happen again? And that restorative practice process has been in the high school for over a decade at this point, but we're always working to make it better. You know, unfortunately, sometimes students do need a punitive consequence. If it's a serious safety issue, we will have to, you know, suspend them from school. But with that suspension, the most important part of it is we work restoratively to help the offender fix things. Next question.
Right. With the investigations that have been performed by the district and the police force, is there any indications that show the previous administration did not report these incidents?
So this is an easy answer because it's ongoing. Like I said before, they have not had the day in court yet, so I cannot give you any further details about the case itself.
And I can add from the district side, if anything were to come up, we will, of course, share that information with the community as if we can. But just, that's why we work in great partnership with law enforcement. We don't step on their toes and we try to be good partners and not interfere in any way. But if anything were to come out of any of this, we'll be able to share what we can share. And,
Just to jump on that, I know it's not a satisfying answer at all, and it's very frustrating. So I hope everybody knows that I acknowledge that I don't like giving that answer, but unfortunately, it's the answer that has to be given. So thanks for understanding that.
Right. One more short question, then I know we want to close out so we can finish on time. Are there rules around teachers driving students in their personal vehicles? What are they and how long have been in place?
Staff should not be driving students in their personal vehicle. And that policy has been around for a long time.
in this administrative policy that's being reviewed, in the instance where, let's say it's a night event and it's cold and the child has no other way to get home, there are processes that you can put in place in the school district. For example, Cameron gets a call from the coach or the activities person and says, this student is here. Well, thank you for letting me know. One process that can be in place is, for example, while that child is being transported, the phone is on and the student is talking to their parent or to a guardian or to someone else. So it's verifiable, it's interruptible, even though there's nothing you can see. But in this policy, what you'll see is there are times where, for example, a child might come into a teacher's classroom and the door gets closed quickly for some reason. I have no idea. What would then happen is that this teacher could then reach out to Ms. Conrad and say, hey, this just happened. I just want to make you aware of this. So we can be proactive, and then if we can work through the details. What we want to make sure, and the Board of Education and I as well, is very clear that we want to make sure that it's a mutual conversation, and that sometimes that might happen. But what do we do when that happens? So it's immediate, parents are contacted, child is contacted, and then we can work through that. But that's where we're going to need help from our staff as well, just to work through some scenarios so we can role play, walk through those, and just work through the situation. So you'll see a line in this new administrative policy that speaks exactly to that point. And Cameron may have something else to add as well.
Well, I think you hit it. I mean, I think there are situations where, kids won't be able to participate, if we can't help them with a ride. And so for us, we'll try everything we can to help the kid participate. We know how important that is. And so I know in that first board reading, there's some things on there around, parent permissions and written permission and things like that. But
I believe the board policy will also address, staff have kids within this building, like their sons and daughters. And oftentimes there's family events or friends of your sons and daughters. And is it okay to transport those kids during off-school hours? So I believe the school board policy is going to address that also.
It won't get into the nuances of every situation, but it allows for dialogue to happen when that situation might come up. So to Cameron and Jessica's point earlier, is just creating space and dialogue, being proactive.
It is currently 6:59. There is one more question that we can address, or we can address afterward if you'd like to close.
So I have one question. I have a bunch of questions written down, but I at least want to ask one question of you. And my question is, what are some topics that you hope the high school communicates with you about prior to the end. If there's any.
I think my son's, just because I really care, he gets through school and passes. He's obviously not gonna get A's and B's. But if the teachers, and they're doing a great job, by the way, doing it, Ben, and he's phenomenal, by the way. And
Ben
he's
Mack
helping with the
And
field,
yeah,
And
with 2 and 3
Yeah.
of Nicoa's classes and reaching out and like Nicoa and Connor and another boy went backpacking the other day. And so I sent him a picture of that and he just thought that was super cool. But anyway, he's doing a really good job, but Nicoa's got his computer taken away here because he somehow figured out how to play video games. That's why I'd like to ask about you later, but anyway, he's done with that, but yet I think he thinks he can't even touch his computer. And so I guess my deal is that the teachers that worst grade, worst classes would let me know, how you doing. And the reason I bring that up is I've emailed them and told them I couldn't do the parent teacher conferences, which I usually love to do. But I sent them all emails and a few of them didn't get back to me. And then I found out because it went to their junk mail. How would it go to their junk mail? I know that's a silly question, but if I'm sending,
Good question.
trying to because we don't want to call the teachers and have their personal cell. But why is it showing up as junk mail, I guess, through the school if I'm sending them email?
We have a pretty strict filter. So at one point, it could be that by accident, someone clicked on your email and added it to the junk folder. So the best way would be your spam filter, is to let me know and I'll just whitelist your email to make sure that does not happen anymore.
Yeah, and I'm not doing a lot, but I did want them all to know, thank you so much for what you do, because I know it ain't easy.
Oh, yeah.
This and that, so on and so forth. And I know Nicole is a great kid with the dang technology.
I
stuff.
see sometimes, not very often, but it do happen that some people do end up in the spam.
Okay,
Depending on their email address, things like that. If it looks suspicious, if it's kind of a strange email address or something like that, it could end up in the junk or spam. Or by accident, a teacher one time put it in their spam folder by accident. And
yeah,
then it continues going to their spam and every time until they click no, not spam, or I force them to be.
okay. I just wondered, because I actually put a cowboy, because I was a cowboy, and then Nicole, when he left Hawaii in 2015. And he can get his own thing when he's 18, but for right now, that's what we both kind of use. And
Yeah.
why it wouldn't, wonder why it wouldn't show up.
And Tim, you bring up a really good point. We want to make sure that our families feel supported who are not able to attend conferences. So in our email, we send a weekly email to staff on Fridays. We'll cue them to check their spam emails in case that's happened to any other families. Thank you for highlighting
That'd be
that.
great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I know it is 7:03 right now. Don't want to keep people any longer than an hour, but I appreciate you coming and I'd be happy to stick around further to answer some of the questions that are still virtually. But I appreciate everyone. And Tim, you say teachers have a really good, hard job and they do. And we really appreciate our teachers and the work they've done, especially over the last 2 years, because it's been a tough road. But it's also been a really tough road for parents and we appreciate the work that you do also. Just the technology conversation alone. I know in our house, we have weekly battles.
Yeah, and we were talking about, I'm not gonna get him a phone, I mean a smartphone.
Okay.
I have to get him a dumb phone, I call it,
Yeah.
because he's gonna be working down in Montrose. And we have to transport him from field to field to cut hay and do all the sheep and telluride. And so anyway,
But,
I have to get him a phone, but not that kind.
Sure, but I appreciate you as parents and thank you for having your kids here at school. That's why I come to school every day is your kids.
Well, it is a great school, and I remember 3 years ago, he had to fill out a report and talk to the last principal and like almost be interviewed to be a choice student. I mean, he wanted in. And so so I just want to keep this going.
Great.
thank you for everybody for what you do.
Sure. Please grab food. If you haven't grabbed food, there's some time.
Thank you guys for coming.
Are there other questions?
We have a question.
Okay.
Funny, it's, Bill went to West.
Perfect.
He buddied up to all the police officers. I guess I told him.
Actions
Funny
and
thing about it is I went to West.
sexual assault.
I should be Nicholas Grant.
What are you doing to make sure students?
God gives us all different cards to play, right?
Really
But
happy.
I became a single parent.
I'll be the ones responsible for doing.
But we came out here and so elementary school.
Maybe the wrong word was obligation.
Mountain Song, which they were taught to clean, to cook, to cut vegetables, to garden, to this, to that, compost. And then he went to West. And it was just ferocious. All he could learn was to keep his mouth shut. When you're done with their homework, you get candy.
Right.
Things I'm trying to keep him away from. So he didn't learn a thing. And then COVID.
Can I hold the mic up? Will that work?
I think that's a great idea.
Is that better?
Just repeat that about safety.
So if students are uncomfortable reporting something to an adult in the building, they can certainly use Safe to Tell anonymously.
Thank you. All right, and our final question for the evening. How can we support our teachers and principals more? How can we show our teachers that parents are interested and want to help them?
That's a great question. And I think a thing that goes a long way, Ms. Conrad and I, every Friday, what we do is phone calls of gratitude to parents and just tell them stories about their kiddos and what they've done during the week. That was awesome. I think that goes a long way with teachers. I know when a parent calls me with gratitude, it warms my heart and lets me know that what we're doing is important and is celebrated. So I think just that simple thing of dropping an email or a phone call to the teachers goes a really long way, and it's pretty easy, and it warms your heart also when you do it. So. Oh, and also you could enlist in PAC and SAC, the Parent Action Committee and the School Accountability Committee. We're always looking for more volunteers. And you can look off the top of my head, I can't think of the dates, but you can certainly look online and find those dates, or drop me an email or a phone call, and I'd be happy to give you that information, what those committees look like.
Can community members be involved in those committees?
Absolutely. I would love community members to be part of that.
Thank you for the question, Celeste. All right, for all of you online, we are going to be concluding the meeting at this time.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.